Hello, my name is Blake and welcome to Devlog 3 for my procedurally generated horror first-person shooter. I've made a lot of changes and added a heap of new stuff since the second devlog. The procedural generation hasn't been touched in the last few weeks though, so I don't have much to show on that. However, I've improved a lot of other things in the game, like the blood and gore. Instead of the tiny puffs of red particles that the game used to have, enemies now spray the red stuff all over the place. The blood isn't final, but it's pretty close to what I want. You can also now jib enemies. Similar to games like Quake and Dusk, if you kill an enemy with a powerful enough weapon, you'll turn them into bleeding chunks of meat, or you can shoot their corpse until the same thing happens. The enemies' ragdolls have also been greatly improved. Their bodies now move in a more realistic way and don't get stuck in the geometry. I've also changed the way that they behave when shot. They no longer fly off in random directions like they occasionally used to, and they now act in a more realistic manner. As it turns out, I had way overthought how to do this, and the way it works now is much simpler than before. Along with the gore, headshots now do additional damage. This wasn't possible in any of my previous games due to how the enemies were set up, but as each body part now has its own collider, headshots are now possible and work as expected. I also decided to date the graphics by about 2 years. Instead of going for 1998 graphics in games like Half-Life, I've decided to go with more 1996 Quake style visuals, which means that I'm redoing some of the enemy designs. The previous ones will still be in the game, but I'll probably redo the models to fit in with everything else. Though as you probably know, I'm not so good at sticking with a single style, so there's probably going to be a mishmash of both. So let's just say the game is going to have late 90s graphics. I currently have 2 new enemy types, both of which are a long way from being finished, but they function well enough. A leather-faced like chainsaw-wielding maniac and a spell-casting mage. The AI is still pretty unintelligent, especially the mage, who just stands there shooting fireballs at you while you point blank shoot him in the face with a shotgun. But my current task is improving the AI, so I'll be back onto that once I finish editing this video. One new weapon has also been added to the game, the chainsaw. I originally made the chainsaw model for one of the enemies to use, but I was happy enough with how it turned out that I decided to see what it would look like in the player's hands, and as it turns out, it looks pretty good. It functions pretty similar to the way the chainsaw does in Doom, so it's pretty much a more powerful version of the default melee weapon. The texture still needs some work, as does some of its code, but it seems like a cool addition to the weapon roster. One other little thing they've changed that might be helpful to someone else making an FPS is the way that shells are ejected from weapons. Originally the guns instantiated prefabs of the shells, but this caused some undesirable physics behaviours when the player moved. I looked for a fix but couldn't find what I wanted, so instead the shells are now ejected in the shooting animation of each weapon. This way isn't quite as realistic, but it allows for a lot more control over how it looks. Along with all this, I've been doing a lot of work under the hood, fixing bugs, light performance improvements and a few other things, though it isn't as exciting as the other stuff and it's kind of hard to show. Basically it's just me staring at my laptop screen, wondering why nothing's working. Then something works and I find out a few minutes later that fixing that one thing has broken 3 others. But hey, what you gonna do? There's probably some stuff that I've missed, but that pretty much gets you caught up on most of what I've been up to over the last week. A lot of stuff has been changed, removed and added over the last 2 months, and a lot more is probably going to change, but I think it will result in a better game. That's all for this devlog. I'm sorry there still isn't anything substantial to show at the moment, but I'm focusing on getting the base gameplay super solid before I move on to building the rest of the game. As always, my name is Blake McKinnon, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. I'm sorry to do this, but due to how much time these videos are taking me to make, they will now be coming out bi-weekly instead of weekly. For the next little while at least. This will help get the game finished quicker and to a higher quality, as I'll be able to devote more time to it, so I'll see you in 2 weeks.